Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because what just happened in the baseball world has set the stage for the Toronto Blue Jays to make an absolutely brilliant move that nobody saw coming. While everyone was watching the Mariners swoop in and grab Brendan Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals, the chess pieces on the board just aligned perfectly for Toronto to strike gold. And the best part? The player they're about to target is flying completely under the radar, while other teams are scrambling around making noise about the big names. This is the kind of front office brilliance that separates the contenders from the pretenders. And if Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays pull this off, we could be looking at the missing piece that transforms this lineup from good to absolutely lethal. Let me paint you the picture of what just went down. The Seattle Mariners made their move yesterday, acquiring Brendan Donovan from the Cardinals in a deal that sent shockwaves through the league. Now, Donovan had been heavily linked to the Blue Jays for weeks. This was a guy that insiders were whispering about in Toronto circles, a player that seemed to check all the boxes for what the Jays needed. The Cardinals absolutely cleaned up in that deal, getting a haul of prospects that officially signals what we all suspected. St. Louis is burning it all down. They're sellers with a capital S, and they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're doing a full cannonball into the rebuild pool. But here's where things get spicy for Blue Jays fans. While everyone is talking about Donovan heading to Seattle, there's another Cardinal who's sitting there like a perfectly wrapped present, just waiting for Toronto to open it. His name is Alec Burleson, and folks, this might be the most underrated potential acquisition of the entire trade season. While the baseball world is distracted by the shiny objects, the Blue Jays have an opportunity to sneak in and grab exactly what they need without getting into a bidding war that drives the price through the roof. Let me tell you why Burleson makes so much sense for Toronto that it's almost scary. First off, this is a left-handed bat, and if you've been paying attention to the Blue Jays lineup construction, you know they've been desperately craving some balance. The team has been right-handed heavy, and opposing managers have been exploiting that weakness all season long. Burleson doesn't just add a lefty bat to the lineup, he adds a lefty bat that can absolutely mash. We're talking about a guy who posted an 802 OPS last year with 18 home runs. He hits the ball extremely hard, and at just 27 years old, he's entering his prime years. This isn't some aging veteran looking for one last payday, or a prospect hoping to figure it out at the major league level. This is a player who has proven he can produce right now. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. The defense. Yes, Burleson isn't winning any gold gloves anytime soon. His defensive metrics aren't pretty, and he's not going to wow you with his glove work. But here's the thing that makes this absolutely perfect for Toronto. Versatility. Burleson transitioned to first base last year, but he can still play the outfield corners. The Blue Jays love players who can move around the diamond, and John Schneider has made it clear he wants to be aggressive with defensive positioning and matchup-based lineups. Having Burleson gives them that flexibility they crave. Picture this scenario, and tell me it doesn't make your mouth water as a Blue Jays fan. On days when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. wants to DH and give his body a break from the field, you slide Burleson in at first base. On days when Vlad is at first, you can move Burleson to left field or right field depending on the matchup. Against right-handed pitching, you could roll out a lineup with Burleson in left, someone like Kevin Kiermaier in center for defense, and another bat in right, with Vlad at first and your DH spot filled. That's a lineup that suddenly has length, balance, and the ability to punish right-handed pitchers from multiple spots in the order. The beauty of Burleson's game goes beyond just the raw numbers. When you dive into his profile, you find a hitter who doesn't strike out excessively. In today's game, where strikeouts are treated like participation trophies and everyone is swinging for the fences regardless of the count or situation, Burleson actually puts the ball in play. His walk rate could be better, sure, but he makes contact and he makes hard contact. For a Blue Jays offense that sometimes struggles with runners in scoring position because they can't string together quality at-bats, adding a guy who consistently puts the barrel on the ball is invaluable. Let's talk about the spray charts for a second, because this is where things get really interesting. Burleson is a pull hitter, especially when he's driving the ball to the outfield. For a team that plays half their games in Rogers Center, having a left-handed pull hitter is like having a cheat code. That short porch in right field suddenly becomes Burleson's personal home run derby cage. The dimensions of that park are practically begging for a lefty who can turn on inside pitches and drive them with authority. We could be looking at a situation where Burleson's power numbers actually spike just from the change in scenery and home ballpark. Here's another dimension that should have Blue Jays fans salivating: the potential for improvement. Burleson posted a 124 weighted runs created plus last year, which is solid, above average production. But when you dig into his advanced metrics, his barrel percentage, and some other underlying numbers suggest he's actually underperforming his potential. Now, imagine what happens when you take a player with that kind of raw talent and put him in the hands of Dave Popkins and the Blue Jays hitting development staff. These are the same coaches who have worked wonders with other hitters, helping them unlock levels of their game they didn't even know existed. If they can get Burleson's approach fine-tuned, we could be looking at an 850 or even 900 OPS hitter. That's not just an upgrade, that's a potential transformation that could shift the entire complexion of the lineup. Let's address the elephant in the room, the cost. What's it going to take to pry Burleson away from St. Louis? Well, we just saw what the Cardinals got back for Brendan Donovan, and it wasn't cheap. Seattle had to part with multiple prospects, including 2 competitive balance round picks. That's a significant haul, and it tells us that St. Louis is serious about restocking their farm system. But here's the key difference. Donovan is a better defender, more versatile positionally, and has had more consistent production over multiple seasons. That drove his price up. Burleson, while still going to cost some legitimate prospects, shouldn't command quite the same return. He's not as polished defensively, and his track record, while solid, doesn't have the same peak years that Donovan can point to. For the Blue Jays, this is actually perfect. They're not in a position where they need to gut their farm system to land one player. They need to be smart, strategic, and identify value where other teams might not be looking. Burleson represents exactly that kind of opportunity. He fills a need, he has upside, and he shouldn't cost them their top-tier prospects. They could potentially construct a package around mid-level prospects and maybe a lower-level lottery ticket, getting them the left-handed bat they desperately need without mortgaging the future. The timing of all this couldn't be better. With the Cardinals now officially confirmed as sellers after the Donovan trade, we know they're motivated to move pieces. Multiple reports from credible insiders like Katie Wu of The Athletic have confirmed that St. Louis is listening on pretty much everyone who isn't nailed down. That creates a buyer's market for teams like Toronto who know what they need and are ready to strike. The Blue Jays didn't jump into the Donovan sweepstakes, which some fans were disappointed about, but in hindsight, that might have been brilliant patience. Why overpay for Donovan when you can wait, see what the market bears, and then swoop in for a player who might actually fit your needs better at a lower cost? There's also the roster construction element that makes Burleson so appealing. The Blue Jays currently have some internal options at designated hitter and corner outfield. Guys like Nathan Lukes and Joey Loperfido, who have shown flashes but haven't established themselves as everyday players yet. Burleson isn't just competing with those guys. He's providing an upgrade that also gives the team insurance and depth. If one of the internal options breaks out, suddenly you have an embarrassment of riches. If they don't, you've got Burleson as a proven commodity who can step in and produce immediately. It's a win-win scenario that minimizes risk while maximizing potential reward. Now let me shift gears for a second, because while the Burleson situation is the headline, there are some other Blue Jays developments that deserve attention. The BetMGM odds for American League Rookie of the Year just dropped, and Toronto has 2 players in the top 5. That's right, 2 players. Ohtani Savage is sitting at plus 300 as a fairly heavy favorite, which tells you how much buzz there is around this kid. Then you've got Kazuma Okamoto at plus 450, sitting right there alongside Munetaka Murakami. The fact that Okamoto has the same odds as Murakami, who has gotten infinitely more media attention and hype, should tell you something about how the smart money views his potential. This is huge for the Blue Jays, because if both Savage and Okamoto live up to expectations, this lineup goes from good to potentially elite. We're talking about adding 2 legitimate middle-of-the-order bats who can change the game with one swing. Savage has been getting all the headlines, and rightfully so. The kid has superstar written all over him. But Okamoto is quietly sitting there as a potential difference maker who could provide exactly the kind of right-handed power the lineup needs to complement the left-handed bats they're trying to add. Imagine a lineup that features Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Trey Savage, Kazuma Okamoto, and potentially Alec Burleson all slotted into different spots. That's a murderer's row that can beat you in multiple different ways, and good luck trying to navigate through that as an opposing pitcher. The diversity of that lineup would be John Schneider's dream. He's made it clear he wants options, matchups he can exploit, and the ability to mix and match based on who's on the mound for the other team. With Burleson in the fold alongside the young guns and established stars, Schneider would have the pieces to construct lineups that attack righties, lineups that can handle tough lefties, and everything in between. That's the kind of depth that sustains success over a 162-game season and carries over into October. But it's not all sunshine and roses in Blue Jays land. There's some concerning news on the injury front that could have ripple effects on the roster. Jake Bloss, one of the team's pitching prospects, might be missing more time than initially anticipated. He underwent surgery on the ulnar collateral ligament in his elbow back in May, and those 4 letters, UCL, are never what you want to hear when talking about a pitcher's elbow. The ulnar collateral ligament is basically the foundation of a pitcher's arm, and when it gets damaged, the recovery process is long, uncertain, and often leads to diminished effectiveness even after the player returns. Bloss was on optional assignment at the time of the surgery and stayed in the minors, which gave the Blue Jays some roster flexibility. But now, as we head into spring training, decisions need to be made. MLB trade rumors recently highlighted Bloss as one of the players who could move to the 60-day injured list once spring training begins, and that creates an interesting dilemma for Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro. Do they keep Bloss in the minors and avoid giving him Major League service time and pay? Or do they call him up and place him on the Major League IL, which opens a roster spot but costs them financially and in terms of service time accumulation? This might seem like inside baseball minutia, but these are exactly the kinds of decisions that separate well-run organizations from the also-rans. Every roster spot matters. Every dollar of payroll flexibility matters. Every year of service time control matters when you're trying to build a sustainable winner. The Blue Jays front office is going to have to carefully balance the immediate needs of the team against the long-term implications of how they handle Bloss. It's a chess match within a chess match, and how they navigate it will tell us a lot about their priorities and planning for the season ahead. The Bloss situation also underscores why adding a player like Burleson makes even more sense. You can never have too much depth, especially when you're dealing with injury uncertainty. If the pitching staff has some question marks, you better make damn sure your offense is equipped to carry the load when needed. Adding proven, productive bats isn't just about getting better, it's about building insurance against the inevitable adversity that every team faces over the course of a long season. The teams that win championships aren't always the most talented. They're the ones that can absorb injuries, slumps, and bad breaks without completely falling apart. Looking at the bigger picture, the Blue Jays are clearly in win-now mode. They've made moves, they're being linked to impact players, and the projections have them competing for the American League East title. That's not an accident. This front office knows they have a window with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette still in their prime years, and they're trying to maximize that window before it slams shut. Adding Burleson would be another signal that they're serious about going for it, that they're not content to just hope the young guys develop and the veterans stay healthy. They're actively trying to stack the deck in their favor. The Cardinals being confirmed sellers is the gift that keeps on giving for contenders. When a team with St. Louis's talent level decides to tear it down, there are bargains to be had for teams willing to strike quickly and decisively. The Donovan trade to Seattle showed that the Cardinals are getting fair value for their players, but it also showed that deals can be made if you're willing to pay the price. For the Blue Jays, Burleson represents the sweet spot of value, impact, and cost. He's not going to break the bank in terms of prospects, he fills a glaring need, and he has legitimate upside if the hitting coaches can work their magic. One of the most exciting aspects of potentially acquiring Burleson is how he fits with the other moves the Blue Jays still need to make. They've been widely reported as being in the market for bullpen help, another area where the Cardinals could potentially help them out. Imagine if Toronto could package a deal that brings back Burleson and a quality reliever in one fell swoop. That's the kind of efficient roster construction that maximizes value and minimizes the number of prospects you have to part with. Instead of making 3 separate deals and depleting the farm system, you make 1 or 2 bigger swings that address multiple needs at once. The bullpen need is real, folks. As good as the starting rotation looks on paper, games are won and lost in the late innings, and the Blue Jays need reliable arms they can turn to when the game is on the line. If they can address both the left-handed bat need and the bullpen need, while the Cardinals are motivated to sell, they could turn this trade deadline period into a masterclass in roster construction. And let's be real, after some of the criticism the front office has taken over the years for being too conservative or missing out on impact players, they could use a win like this to change the narrative. The best teams in baseball are the ones that can identify market inefficiencies and exploit them. Right now, with everyone talking about the big names and the flashy acquisitions, Alec Burleson sitting there as a potential under-the-radar add represents exactly that kind of inefficiency. He's good enough to make a real impact, affordable enough to not cripple the farm system, and available because his current team is tearing everything down. That's the recipe for a home run trade. Pun absolutely intended. As we head deeper into the offseason and closer to spring training, keep your eyes on the Blue Jays and Cardinals connection. The pieces are in place for something special to happen here. Ross Atkins has shown before that he's willing to make bold moves when he sees value. And this has all the makings of one of those situations where everyone looks back 6 months from now and wonders how Toronto got such a steal. The Cardinals need to rebuild, the Blue Jays need to compete, and Burleson is sitting right in the middle as the perfect bridge between those two realities. So folks, there you have it. Everything has fallen perfectly into place for the Toronto Blue Jays to make a move that could define their season. While everyone was watching Seattle grab Brendan Donovan, the real opportunity emerged for Toronto to swoop in and land Alec Burleson, a left-handed bat who checks every box they need checked. Add in the exciting Rookie of the Year contenders in Savage and Okamoto, navigate the roster decisions around Jake Bloss, and you've got a team that's positioning itself to make serious noise in the American League East. The stage is set. The opportunity is there. And now it's up to the front office to execute. If they can pull this off, if they can land Burleson without gutting the farm system, and maybe add that bullpen piece they desperately need, we could be looking at a Blue Jays team that's built to win right now while maintaining flexibility for the future. That's the sweet spot every contender is trying to find, and Toronto is closer than ever to getting there. What do you think, Blue Jays Nation? Is Alec Burleson the missing piece this lineup has been searching for? Can the front office capitalize on the Cardinals' fire sale and land the perfect complementary bat to pair with Vlad, Bo, and the young stars? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear what you think about this potential game changer. And if you're as fired up as I am about the possibilities for this Blue Jays team, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update as we track every move this team makes. This is the kind of off-season drama that makes baseball the greatest sport on earth, and we're just getting started. Let's go Blue Jays, and let's see if Ross Atkins can work his magic and bring Burleson to Toronto.